Can we talk about how Blair baited MAKA and Soul at the same time? Not only that, put their progression all the way to 0. Which, mind you, she might have been the worst opponent they would have faced against. Because they made them have to start all over again. Not intentionally though. Even though at the same time it would have been best for them to go after her first. Because A, that's when the story starts. And B, it taught them a whole lot of things after one fight. And mind you, while they were fighting this whole entire time, they had 2 spectators. And they both couldn't do nothing about it. But hey, how did they even manage to get into this type of situation to begin with?
A few moments later.
We about to see Kishine munch on his next victim until MAKA and Soul came along and stopped it. But they did have to hit it with an album post before it sent it to the Shadow Realm. So Soul decided to turn to a scythe and MAKA had to hit him with that devious ass scythe emote. You know they're cooked when they had to go flex on him real quick. But that evil soul was not trying to have that and tried to pounce onto MAKA. And I'm not gonna lie, this part gave a screenshot worthy for a wallpaper. But it tried to attack her, but it was failing badly. She was basically blocking everything like it was nothing. So that Kishine thought it got her trapped on the stairway, but she's already 2 steps ahead of it. So she jumped up and stomped on it like it was a Goomba, making it look dumb and lose balance. So MAKA decided to use the opportunity and strike it down. But it tried to jump like it was gonna do something, but it only made it more to a free target, and it gave her a perfect opportunity to give her a destructive finish. Once Soul decided to go and eat his meal, they have one more target to go to, and it was basically a witch. So before they go after a witch, they decided to go report everything to Death, and he basically gives out the mission details for them. And once they got the details, they were off to find the witch.
Meanwhile,
they found the location for the witch they were trying to hunt for, and of course they caught her at a bad time. But of course they didn't know about what was going on in there, and Soul's first reaction is to go barge in there, and bro realized last second what he ran into. So of course he gets a nosebleed out of nowhere. It was to a point that he couldn't even focus on what was going on. MAKA even tried to kick the life out of him, but would you believe me that it still didn't work? At this point, he put himself into the situation, but MAKA was not trying to play around and get into that action. So she finally decided to put on some clothes, and she decided to go for the first move, and it was super effective.
The next day.
So they decided to go try again later on, and they tried to catch her lacking, but little did they know she saw him first. So she caught him by surprise instead, and that was another failed attempt. And at that point, MAKA was getting annoyed, but Blair found him arguing, and then this happened. So Blair was putting pressure on MAKA, and on top of everything else, she was taunting her. But MAKA had to deal with another issue as well, because Soul and her was arguing with each other. So once Blair seen that situation was happening, she decided to use the opportunity to the fullest. So she started to bait Soul to switch sides, but MAKA was not trying to let that slide. And the crazier part, Soul was low-key thinking about it. So Blair was like, that didn't fully work yet, and she started going to attack again. Try to grip her up with her clothes, but MAKA was not trying to get caught with that, and almost sliced her up. But of course, she's not going to go down that easily, and hits her with a surprise pumpkin attack. So she tried to use her head to try to slam her into stuff, but she was quick on her feet and managed not to let that happen. And once all that was happening, Soul had a devious plan. So once MAKA was getting pressure like crazy, Soul decided to go execute his plan. So he drops her at a safe spot, then he was like, you know what, I'm gonna go switch sides. And Blair was filled with joy from that, and MAKA thought that he was put into a spell, but in all reality that was just not the case. So once he decided to do that, she had a whole mental breakdown, and it's respectable too. She had to deal with her dad being a player, and on top of that, that situation popped up out of nowhere. Mind you, he was the first person she trusted. So once Soul seen that, he knew he deserves an Oscar for the acting. Mind you, she looked at that and did nothing about it. So Soul told her to do the finishing blow, and that what she did, and it was basically game. And she was happy that all of it was just his plan. So once Soul was ready to eat the final soul, which had to be a witch soul, he gobbled up his meal, and throughout everything, nothing really happened, because that was not a witch soul he consumed. It was a cat's this whole entire time. So she turned back to a human form and started to taunt him like crazy, and they all have no words about it, because all the souls that they consume is now for nothing. And at that point, I would have been extremely annoyed as well. But that was basically the end of that episode, and what's your thoughts about this? You should let me know. Also, shout out to my Nintendo channel.